The morning mist rose slowly from the valley floor, curling like pale smoke between the trunks of ancient pines. Each breath hung heavy in the air, a faint cloud that vanished as quickly as it appeared. It was late October in the high country of the Rocky Mountains, the year 1820, and the wilderness lay silent beneath a sky of cold iron. Samuel Hart, a trapper no older than 30, trudged along a narrow game trail with a musket slung across his back and a bundle of traps tied to his pack. His boots sank deep into the damp earth, leaving clear prints that froze almost instantly in the morning frost. He had been alone for weeks, following the streams that fed the Missouri, setting traps for beaver and checking lines in the quiet dawn. But the signs of the coming winter were everywhere. The leaves were long gone, stripped by wind and rain. The days grew shorter, the nights more brutal. That morning, when Samuel looked toward the ridges above, he saw what every mountain man dreaded to see too early: snow. Thin flakes drifted down from a gray sky, landing on his coat and melting into the wool. 1 or 2 flakes meant little. A storm, however, could seal the passes and trap a man in the backcountry for months. Samuel knew the rule of the frontier. The wilderness gives no mercy to the unprepared. He had enough food for a week, perhaps 2 if he rationed carefully. But food was worthless without warmth and shelter. He paused beside a stream lined with willows and watched the slow movement of ice along the water's edge. The land around him was wild and unbroken, filled with the quiet sounds of a living world. The call of a distant raven, the rustle of wind through pine needles, the steady rush of water over stone. This would be the place, he decided. A narrow valley with trees for lumber, a stream for water, and a rocky bluff to break the wind. He dropped his pack, stretched his sore shoulders, and looked around. The first task was to find the right materials. Shelter, he knew, was not built from plans but from instinct. The old trappers had taught him to read the land the way others read words, to see what nature offered and what it warned against. Low ground meant flooding, open ridges meant freezing wind, and too much shade could mean death by cold. After pacing the clearing, he marked his spot, a rise of dry ground facing east, where the morning sun would strike first. The snow began to fall harder now, whispering against his hat brim. Samuel drew his axe, its edge bright from a recent sharpening, and stepped to the nearest pine. The first strike echoed through the forest. Chips of wood flew, releasing the sharp, clean scent of sap. Each swing was deliberate, steady, and rhythmic, the way he had learned from the older men of the fur company. The handle of the axe grew slick with sweat despite the cold. Soon the tree groaned and leaned, cracking loudly before crashing to the forest floor with a shudder that shook the ground. He worked for hours, cutting smaller logs, trimming branches, and dragging the pieces toward his chosen site. His hands burned from friction, his breath came in clouds, and his coat was dusted white with snow. The wilderness demanded constant movement. To stop was to grow cold. As he worked, he remembered stories told around distant campfires. Tales of men who had failed to build in time, found frozen in their blankets when the first true blizzard struck. Out here, every hour mattered. By midday, Samuel had cleared enough ground for a small frame. He leaned a row of thick poles against a fallen trunk, forming the backbone of a crude lean-to. The angle was steep to shed snow, and the open side faced away from the prevailing wind. He packed the base with moss and bark to keep moisture out, then began stacking branches like shingles, layering pine boughs over the top for insulation. It was rough work, but the design came from methods he had learned from both fellow trappers and indigenous hunters who knew the land far better than most white men. The Crow and the Shoshone had long built brush lodges and windbreaks using these same materials, guided by centuries of experience. As he worked, the wilderness seemed to close in around him. The light dimmed beneath the heavy clouds. The forest silence was complete, broken only by the chop of his axe and the occasional creak of settling snow. When his shelter began to take shape, he paused and leaned on his handle, studying his progress. It was not yet a cabin, not even a proper hut, but it was something, a place where he could build a fire, rest his back, and wait out the storm. The ground beneath him was frozen hard, so he scraped away the top layer of snow and pine needles, revealing soil dark with moisture. He lined the floor with branches to keep himself above the cold earth. From his pack, he drew flint and steel, crouched low, and began striking sparks onto a nest of dry tinder, shredded bark, cattail fluff, and dried moss. After several attempts, a single spark caught, glowing orange. He bent close and blew gently until a flame leapt to life. Soon the smell of wood smoke filled the air, rising through the gaps in his half-built roof. Night fell quickly. The forest faded into shades of black and blue, the snowfall thickening until the trees disappeared into a blur. Samuel added more wood to the fire and pulled his blanket around his shoulders. The heat reached his face, but the wind still found its way through the cracks in the walls. The wilderness was vast and indifferent, a place that neither welcomed nor hated. It simply was. As he sat beside the flickering light, Samuel's mind wandered to the trappers who had come before him. The men who followed the beaver trails west and built shelters from nothing but what they carried on their backs. He thought of the indigenous hunters whose techniques he borrowed, men who had lived with the land rather than against it. Their shelters were simple, efficient, and always in harmony with their surroundings. The mountain men who survived longest were the ones humble enough to learn from them. The hours passed, marked only by the slow hiss of falling snow and the crackle of burning pine. Samuel melted a cup of snow in his tin pot, then warmed a strip of jerky over the flames. The taste was tough and smoky, but it brought life back to his tired body. He studied the shadows cast on the log walls, watching the fire dance across their rough surfaces. Outside, the storm howled through the trees, bending branches and scattering snow in spirals. Inside, the fire's glow carved out a small island of warmth, a fragile circle of light in a sea of cold and darkness. He knew the shelter was far from complete. Tomorrow he would need to strengthen the roof, gather more logs, and seal the gaps with clay and moss. But for tonight, he had a fire, a roof of pine, and a place to rest. That was enough. The wilderness tested every man differently, but in the end, it demanded the same truth. Survival depended on respect. As the night deepened, Samuel lay beside the fire, listening to the wind claw at the forest beyond. The storm was only beginning, and so was the long winter. His eyelids grew heavy, the warmth of the flames lulling him towards sleep. In the dim light, smoke drifted upward through the cracks, and the pines swayed like dark sentinels overhead. The first snow of the season fell through the valley that night, covering the trapper's tracks, his tools, and the clearing in a clean white shroud. By morning, the world would be silent again, and the battle for survival would begin anew.